What up, guys? Dr. Vic here, and excited to be here to share with you another amazing episode recording that we did. I had a blast on this. This is actually someone I've gotten to know now for about a year and a half, and to see her growth and to see her transformation and to see her gifts just blossom into fruition. It's been absolutely amazing. And I knew I had to get her on the show. I've been kept telling her for about 6 months, I'm gonna get you on, I'm gonna get you on, I'm gonna get you on. And eventually we're like, we just got to do this. And that was the end of that. So to share, I have the pleasure of sharing a wonderful space with Angelica Grace. Now, with Angelica, she has always known that she had a gift for helping others transform themselves and guiding them towards their most authentic self. When she began to deepen her connection with spirit and her angel guides, she realized her mediumship and psychic abilities were also strengthening. She had a strong connection to the angelic realms and knows the importance of connecting with loved ones. She knew by deepening this part of herself, she would be able to help others through dark times in their lives. As she's gone through deep soulful healing, when going through the healing process, as she continues to, she knew that helping share this wisdom and helping others is her life work. Angelica can help you to gain clarity on getting through the darkness, giving you new clear insight into yourselves and connecting with you with the ones you love and their important messages to you. She's the author of Graceful, A Soul's Journey, which can give you more insight into her own self-transformation from the dark to the light. Angelica has dedicated her life to helping all those who need the extra support while on their own soul transformational path. So I'm not going to take any more thunder away from her. I'm excited to introduce to you guys. Here is Angelica Grace. Well, Angelica, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Doc. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on. I know you're up to some amazing things. I've been saying for quite some time, got to get you on the podcast. And eventually I was just like, we got to do this. It's too much talking. Let's make this happen.
Yeah, I'm glad it finally lined up.
So as always, I know you're up to amazing things. We're going to get into a lot of this stuff, but one of the things I always like to dive in quick and just, here is your story. How did you, for the listeners, how did you get into what you're doing? How did life kind of nudge you and guide you in that way? Or was it that straight, narrow line? If you don't mind sharing for us.
Yeah, of course. It's interesting when you say the straight line because it is anything but that. And I think sometimes, we have a feeling that things are changing or that we want things to change, but we really are sometimes forced into making those changes. And I think that is what had happened with me. I was searching for so much more out of life. I knew that I had this power within me. I just didn't know what it was, how to tap into it, what it looked like. And it wasn't until really I had some life events that sort of unfolded where I was really kind of stripped of everything that I had used to create my life. I was really living my life from my ego standpoint, and I had filled it with things that did not fill me up at all. It was like the more that I was bringing into my life, the emptier that I felt. And I kept looking and reflecting back, and I kept saying to myself, like, what am I missing? There's something huge that I'm missing within myself. But it was there the whole time. It was just covered up by all these different parts of myself that I wasn't willing to accept, that I was too scared to look at. So, as the universe always does, it sort of pushed me in this direction of like rediscovering my self-love, rediscovering who I am, and really peeling back each layer. So there was a point in time where I kind of lost everything. I was going through a divorce. I lost my house. I think I had like $400 to my name. I had to sell a lot of my things. I lost a lot of friends, family members, connections, things like that. But what I was realizing was these were things that they were just not serving me in a way that was helping me grow. And I love and appreciate every stage that I was in, everybody that kind of came into my life, everyone that still comes into my life, even when it's those heartbreaking relationships or experiences. I deeply feel that with those experiences and the shift in perspective, they're really nudging you and helping you discover who you are. And I think that's what was happening with me. I really was tapping back into who I am at my core versus what I thought I was outside. So it was really interesting how everything happened.
It's fascinating how that happens, right? And it's funny, the story keeps coming up, and I've been talking a little bit more about this with people I've been interviewing, is that when you're younger, you create these survival mechanisms, right? And we all go through them in our different ways. I know you have yours that you create, I've had mine. And then there comes a point in life where you're kind of like, why do I need this anymore? Like, what's the point of having this? I don't, that's not my life anymore, right? And you get to a certain point where it's like you get emptier and emptier and emptier because it's not really, you're more stuck in that fear state, right? The ego's like, hey, we got to keep you comfortable, as you were saying. And then there comes a point in your life where all of a sudden you're like, enough's enough. Why do I need this? And it's some people call it inner child work. So, there's a lot of different things to this name. There's a lot of names out there for this, but it's one of the things where you finally realize, like, I don't need to worry about surviving anymore. Now it's time. That's all in the past. And now it's time to, how do I grow and expand? Would you agree that's kind of how it's been for you?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because what keeps coming up lately is it's not necessarily about, like, the exact choice you make, if you're turning right or left, or, you're going up or down or whatever it is. It's the energy and the mindset behind why you're choosing to do what you're doing. So I was making all these choices, these life decisions, and making it, like you're saying, I was living in this survival mode, from traumatic events from when I was younger, that I was really kind of building my life off of. So me living in fear and me kind of grasping at what I thought I needed was just bringing in more fear. So I think, like you're saying, and it started when you and I started working together. I mean, talk about like massive shift. But it was me really tapping into what I actually wanted. And I had never asked myself that before in my life. I never knew that was an option. So once I started looking inward and I was like, wait a second, I can like tap into love. I can choose love, and I can make decisions from that space. And that's where that shift kind of came in, where I was stepping out of the survival and into my power, which was huge.
Love that. And when you do now, when you first made that choice, just so listeners can hear, because a lot of times I know I've gone down that path where when you're finally realizing this and you see this, and then you make the choice to switch over and say, well, now I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do something totally different. What emotions arise when you do that?
Every emotion you could possibly imagine. Wow. That's a really good question. Of course, at first, it's interesting. It's this push pull. That's how I keep kind of describing it. It's this push pull where it's this old self and this new self kind of emerging. So it's this old ego, subconscious repeating beliefs, these limiting beliefs, this behavior of, that lower vibration, fear, shame, regret, what if something else doesn't come in? What if this doesn't work? What if, nobody shows up? What if? And then there's this like push pull where then you're like, well, hang on a second. If I don't step into this and I don't try, I'm never going to know. And as long as you sort of tap into that loving part, I was kind of saying this earlier, was the love started to outweigh the fear within my life. So it was almost, I was choosing to feel that love within myself over the fear that I had been feeling for so long. So there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of spiritual growth and soulful growth and mind, body, spirit that kind of goes into it. But you really have to consciously choose to listen to the love versus the fear.
That's so true. It's like a lot of the mystics or the gurus, some people will call them those names, but it's like they always say, choose love or choose fear or choose love. And that's really all you have and
Mm-hmm.
all that. Now, when you made that choice, was your mind like just racing like crazy with thoughts? I mean, you talk about the push pull. I love that because I call it the battleground. That I don't know if I talk about that in my chiropractic realm. I always call it the patients go through a point in care where they start to go through the battle. And what it is you're like, new wiring of the brain going here. Here's the old wiring pulling you back. And it's like you go back and forth and eventually we break through. And that's a neurological principle. And it's really cool because it's a life principle too, right?
Yes.
How much was the mind racing for you? Was it a lot of inner critics, a lot of inner stuff? Was there a lot of that going on when you made that choice?
Yes, 100%. I'm pretty sure that, and this is the beauty of like having a strong support system around you, but creating like a very mindful, loving support system. So, like having you as a coach, I'm pretty sure I was, inboxing you and I'm like, I can't do this. This is crazy. I cannot, and it was like, okay, hold on a second. Let's take a breath. Let's bring it back to why you're doing what you're doing. Let's look at how far you've come. Let's really ground. I think a lot of the time I really had to ground my energy and really ground mind, body, spirit, because it's very easy to get lost in the emotions and in the feelings. So I think that the most important thing I can say, and that I did throughout that time period, was really ground. I did a lot of inner reflecting. So really unraveling those stories that I was telling myself, trying to understand why the fear was coming up, where it was coming from, and really trying to be conscious about making the decision to not listen to it. So it is definitely, one other thing too, is when you're going through this transformation and you're really sort of peeling back these layers, you're really releasing a lot of the old self. So a lot of this old energy, a lot of these old belief systems, and you're kind of left with some empty space. And I think that's where that push-pull comes into, because then you have this space and you don't really know what to do with it because you haven't felt that in so long within yourself. And you really come to a point, that breakthrough point, where you're like, hang on a second, I can create what I want to create. And then you realize you can fill it with consciously with love and with what is really meaningful to you. So there is that space, I know, right where you're talking about, that you really do have to trust and really trust who you are and spirit and the universe and everything to really step into that power.
It's so true, because I mean, the mind, the ego, as much as it wants to make you stay comfortable, and it's a good reason. I mean, I talk about this about a lot. Everyone wants to bash the ego, right? And it's like, no, the ego's there for a reason. We need ego. Now, you don't want it to run your life, but you want it to be there because it's your like, hey, it's like a second eye for you. Spouses and partners do that really well. A lot of times there's arguments in relationships and they'll be like telling you something and you're like, I already know this. But in reality, if you take a step back, or like you're driving, they say, watch out for that. I got that. I see that. It's fine. Right. And you get a little annoyed, but really it's just another eye. Hey, just take a peek at that. Make sure, feel that out. See what you feel there. Now you got into mediumship, and I want to dive a little bit into this. Did you always have these feelings of intuition, or first I'll start with what kind of things you had as a kid, what kind of gifts, or I don't like using the word gift because we all have something, but I'll go with gifts. That's the easiest I could say. So what kind of gifts did you notice some things as a child, and did you kind of like repress those as you got older, or did you always stay in tune with them?
Yeah, this is actually a really beautiful story that just recently sort of unfolded. So I'm happy that you're bringing this up. What had happened when I was younger, when I knew that and you're right, I don't want to say gifts because we all have that. It doesn't make anyone more special than the other. We're all connected. We're all the same. I have just chosen, as part of my soul's purpose, to tap more into this space. So when I was younger and I was going through this, abuse that I had gone through, I remember it was roughly the age 7, where I remember really seeing things. And it was almost seeing more of energy, where I just kind of knew something was there. And as a young child, it scared me because I didn't really know what to do with it. And I had, experienced this trauma. And what really happened after that was, as we were talking about, it's this fight or flight, it's this survival. I really lost a large part of who I was. And it took a long time. I'm grateful for it because it helped me rediscover who I am and really strengthen the love within myself. But I really turned my back on God, on the universe, whatever we want to call it, archangels, ascended masters, everyone. And what I realized is, as this was unfolding, and the more that I was unfolding this abuse and really confronting these people and confronting myself and loving myself, I realized they never went anywhere. I had just turned my back. So it's like I grew up, Catholic, and there's Jesus and Mother Mary and angels and all these things. And I was choosing to not allow that energy into my life. And it was a coping mechanism. I didn't know any better. So for a very long time, I was not picking up on energies. I was more scared of it. I suppressed it. I remember even opening up about it to, I think it was my mom, and she was like, this is crazy. You know, you don't see anything. And I'm like, okay, I don't. But then I would know things. And the older I was getting, and after she had passed away, I was really diving into Buddhism, and I was really like discovering spirituality and different ways of looking at life. And once I started doing that, that's when everything started to open back up. It was like I was opening up Pandora's box, and I was like, well, wait a minute. This is possible. This is what is happening. And I think especially recently, when I really started to, you know, you talked about inner child work, and I was working through a lot of this abuse throughout my life, and writing the book and doing all this really deep healing. That's when I was, you know, I was healing myself and I was loving myself more, but because I was doing that, I was loving spirit more, and that allowed space for them to come in. So all I really was doing was clearing out the old, opening up the new. And again, it opened up this beautiful space for me to then understand my gifts and really step into the psychic mediumship. So
I love that. I love the story too, because it's very similar. Like it's somewhere around, for me, it was 12 years old when I shut mine off. Same thing. You could feel energies, you know, they're there. I didn't know how to handle them. At night, they used to come out. I had these energies that would like mess with me. And I just didn't know what to do. I knew they were there. I could see it in my head, something. And then I look and there's nothing there, but I'm like, no, there's something there. I'm feeling something. And then, you know, as I try to talk to family and, you know, talk to friends, and they're like, what are you talking about? Or if I talk to them, I can feel like you got this going on. I can sense this emotion. You got this happening. And they're like, no, I'm good. There's nothing there. And then and then I started, you know, later on in life, you look back and you're like, you were reading them. You knew, you
yes,
saw what they had going on. They just didn't want to talk about it.
absolutely.
And so it's one of those things. Then when it comes to that process, then is it more of just like a surrender? Like it's a trusting process in yourself to just be like, all right, this is what I have. I'm going to work on this gift and I'm going to start to expand it more. How does that all work?
Yeah, what was happening was I was really diving into deep meditations, and while I was doing this, I was realizing that there was spirit coming through. So I would have loving messages for like good friends of mine from their moms that had passed on. Um, and the more that I was leaning into that, the more that I was understanding that, you know, I went through different courses, and I had worked with another mentor who is a psychic medium, and it sort of helped me understand language with spirit. And the more that I'm going down this road, I realize that we all have these abilities. And I think of it as like a fingerprint or like a snowflake. Like it's everyone has their own imprint and their own language with spirit, how they communicate. And, you know, as I said before, I was really just choosing to open up, create the space. When I began to give these loving messages to people, you know, I had lost my mom. It's been about 11 years, 10 and a half, 11 years. So when other moms and mothers were coming to me to give these loving messages, I was thinking in my mind, like, I would have loved to have had this after my mom had passed away. So it was like, how can I not, you know, continue to develop this spirituality and this gift and not give these healing and loving messages to others? So I think it really started to become clear to me that the path that I was on, I knew it was coming to an end. I knew that there was something more and something bigger. And this just kind of, it came front and center, and I really had to trust that that was where I wanted to go. And it's been really beautiful. It's been very fulfilling, and it's helped me really create a life that feels very wholesome to me, which is important.
I love that. And you know, just give yourself credit too, because you jumped in. You didn't like hold it off. You didn't say, I'm going to think about it or procrastinate. You were just like, nope, this is my vision. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing it. That's it. How do we do the work to get there? You know? And so it's been, you know, give yourself some credit on that one, because that's huge. Not a lot of people do that. A lot of times people talk about ideas and then they let them, linger on for a while, and then maybe they'll come back 3 to 5 years later, or maybe they don't ever get back to it. And so when it comes to mediumship and so forth, I know, and just for the listeners, I want to have them understand a little bit about this too. Like, I know messages and things come differently to each individual. And, like for me, it's like more of like a smack in the head, and it comes when I least expect it. And I'm just like, oh, that's what you were talking about. Cool. And they like to joke with me a lot. For you, is it a listening? Is it a seeing? Is it a feeling? Is it all the above? How do you feel the energy when it's coming to you?
Sure. So I think it does change and shift. I don't want to say day to day, but the more that you strengthen, and what I was realizing is the more readings I'm doing and the more that I'm really stepping into this, different clairs, clairaudience, clairsentience, different ways that I'm feeling spirit really shifts and changes. So when it began, I was really feeling a lot of energy. I would just know something was there. And I would also see it through my third eye. So seeing it also helped me understand sort of who was coming through. I was able to describe, the loved ones. I was able to describe if it was, angels or whatever it may be. So I would say it does shift and change, but it definitely started with a knowing, then I was seeing, then I was hearing. And my goal basically, as I was saying, even before we got on this discussion, was I am just the mouthpiece. So I'm like, I choose to stay in alignment, and I choose to do the work and what I need to really stay clear and in a loving vibration, because by doing so, it's like a clear pathway. Think of it as just like flowing downstream. The clearer I am, the clearer spirit comes through, and the more clear the messages I can give to others. And as I said before, that was really beginning to outweigh the fear of, not wanting to share this. So I would say, spirit comes in the most unexpected ways sometimes. So it can be speaking through other people, as we're talking right now. And, I would say for myself, it would be mostly feeling, seeing, and hearing.
That's awesome. Now, real quick, why would someone, say they would, is it going to a mediumship, psychic medium, correct? Just want to make sure I have the title correct.
Yes.
Would it be, is there anyone? Is it because of a past loved one? Why, what are the things that psychic mediums can, or what you do, can offer someone?
Yeah, I always compare this as well. Like same thing with like working with a shaman or other energy healers, doing, Reiki, or working with a coach or mentor, whatever it may be. I really do feel that the messages, like you'll feel nudged knowing that this is where you kind of need to be. Like you'll feel that gentle pull of like, I've never thought about, seeking out a psychic medium or looking into energy work or working with a coach. But then spirit will keep nudging you and nudging you and nudging you, and it'll kind of come in like a neon sign. So what I've noticed with myself, with what I offer, because as I said, psychic mediums and light workers and energy healers really have their own, fingerprint on it, how what they serve and what they give to others. So I'm noticing for myself, I work a lot with women who have experienced trauma, women who have lost loved ones, mothers in particular, a lot of women who are either trying to, conceive and have, babies, or doing some deep healing work. So, as I've said before, is, I can only help people as far as I've been helped, which is why I continue to heal and kind of peel back the masks that I was wearing. The more that I do this, the more I can help other people. So I think if you're looking for a psychic medium, I would say really listen and feel the pull towards what feels right to you. Your soul knows what it needs. It's just kind of silencing the mind and kind of letting yourself be drawn towards it. So I think that working with a psychic medium can be really beautiful, because it's not necessarily giving you the yes or no answers. It's giving you tools to help you decide which answer you want to take, what pathway you want to take. That's how I view it for myself. I'm not there to give you, the yes or no answer. I'm just here to guide you towards you making the most loving choice that you can possibly make for yourself.
I love that. And then you can also bring in too, like if somebody wants, let's say, do you do work where you connect to like someone's higher self or connecting to archangels or ascended masters and getting like, because I know spirit will never give information that is going to interfere with your path, but those things you also can do so forth.
Yes, what I have noticed is I work very closely with the angelic realm. I did not know this beginning with when my gifts were, kind of coming to fruition. But what I realize is, especially with doing the Reiki that I do and the readings that I typically, the pathway that they usually have me use is I start with angelic readings. So sometimes that is with an archangel, sometimes that is with an ascended master, sometimes that's just with that person's spirit guide. So I know that I love to give reassurance and loving messages and guidance. And typically that is through, as I said before, my intention going into every reading is to just give whatever loving messages to them that they cannot hear for themselves. So typically I'll just call in whichever guardian angel is working with them at that phase in their life, whoever's really helping them lead the pathway, and I'll get messages from them. So I love to work with guardian angels and I love to work with the archangels because it's just this, it's like a warm blanket on like a cool day. It's like that wholesome, loving energy that that can just really change your life. So I always love to work with that. And I am just the mouthpiece. So I just open it up to whichever spirit of the highest truth that needs to come through to help the individual that I'm speaking with.
I love that. And is that maybe why, or one of the many reasons why your name is Angelica?
It's, I've heard that before. Yes. Angelica Grace.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Yeah.
have heard that. Hmm.
And it's funny sometimes they say this is why like I'm very particular about choosing a name when I have kids because I'm all about like I know this is going to somehow shift their play a role in their fate or destiny. Some people say, "Oh, it's just a name," and I'm like, I don't know. I know my name's Victor, and that means conqueror and victorious and a winner. And no matter what happens, I'm always in my head. I was like, I'm going to be a victor. I'm going to be a victor. I'm always going to break through no matter what shows up in life. And that I learned that at what sixth, seventh grade when they gave us like our meaning of our name. We had sixth grade, and they gave us this little card, and it said Victor, and it said conqueror and a winner, and this. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I am because I didn't have self worth, so I looked outside to get it.
Right.
So it's one of those things. But yes, the angelic realms. When you were saying it, the angelic realms, I'm like, oh, I have to ask that question.
Well, our, like you're saying, our names carry its own particular vibration. It is like our fingerprint in the universe. So it makes sense as to, when I am tapping into someone's energy, I work with their name given at birth. So it's funny that you're saying that because that's how I can read their energy. So yeah.
So cool. I mean, do you ever get into numerology at all?
I do. I have a little bit, and that is also fascinating. You go down that pathway.
When you go that, because like I know even like celebrities will change their name, and I don't think you can manipulate this, but
Right.
again, who knows? But they will change their name so it hits a certain number that they want that lines up with numerology to mean something. If it's not aligned in that way.
That's so interesting.
Crazy stuff.
Mhm.
So what are things that when you let's see, I'm trying to think if we covered the topic I wanted to make sure we talked about was like trusting. I'm trying to read. I don't have my glasses on. But standing in your power as you do this work and you dive deeper into it, how much has this been helping you truly what's the word I'm looking for? We talked about the old life, new knife, breaking out into a new pattern, but like returning back, because I really believe life is a journey where you come into this world, you know who you are. You know the essence, you know your soul, you're still connected to the other side. And there that eventually diminishes down, and then you get lost. And then you go through a period of loss. Some people never make it back. Some people do, and they remember who they are. And I really believe life is all just a journey, remembering the real essence of who you are. How much with this work has that been really helping you stand in your power and remember the real essence, not the Angelica Grace, but I've heard spirits say we do have a name for our souls. I'm like, what's mine? And they don't give it to me. I'm like, I want to know. It's gotta be something cool. I mean, maybe something more, I don't know. But what is that, how has that journey been for you?
Yeah, this is reminding me of my book. And I was actually just reading some of it before we kind of came on here, because even thinking back to when I was writing this book, I was such a different person than I am now. But I think part of my vision and my life's purpose is to help people rediscover who they are and their love and the importance of that. I think that going down this road of, rediscovering, it can be very, what's the word? Up and down. And when we bring it back to the trust within ourselves, there came a point where I remember just surrendering. It was one of those days. It was, dark night of the soul. I felt empty. I didn't know what I was doing. It really had tested everything that I had thought was true within my life. And I remember surrendering to spirit. And I was like, whatever you are trying to show me, like, let me see it. Just let me know what it is. Because what I was doing is I was grasping so hard at hanging on to this old belief system, like holding on to this abuse and holding on to this shame that I had carried around for so long. It was like, I always think of it as I was climbing up a mountain with a backpack full of bricks in the snow with no boots on, just barefoot. And it was like, the quote I always say is, if you're walking through hell, why would you stop? So I just kept thinking, like, I have to keep going. Wherever there is dark, light has to immediately come right after it. And I just had to really power through and trust. The more that I was trusting myself, the more I was trusting spirit. The more I trusted spirit, the more I was trusting myself. So I really had to lean into, the vision, the pathway, the love, the meaning behind the importance of rediscovering who I am. Because as I said before, the love began to outweigh the fear, and I did not want to go back into the fear. So I really had to step into, well, let's say they're giving me the message of like them shoving me through like a really tight door. Like they were like pushing me through the door, because it's like, they know that you're ready, you can make it, but really getting past that subconscious mind can be very challenging at times. So I would say, as I continue to rediscover who I am, because this is a lifelong journey, this is just one of the phases that I'm in. There's no way that I would go back, because even through the darkness and even through, the depths of, the scariest things you could ever possibly imagine, what's on the other side is so much more vibrant and so much more powerful that there's no way I would ever go back. So I recommend it to everyone, whoever is ready to take their journey.
It's so true. I mean, it's like when you hold on to fear, I mean, there's so much energy you have to put into that to hold, right? But if you
Yes.
just, when you dive into it and you sit with it and you work through it, I mean, it's the other side is just, I mean, like you said, pure light, but it's so much better. And then once you get used to doing that, then you, like they always say, the best way to mastery and success is not financially, it could be anything you determine to be successful. But they always say that, the more you can get comfortable being uncomfortable, the more successful and more growth you'll have in your life.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And even, I just wanted to bring up, even working with, shaman, with shaman working through this, it helped me understand the dark parts within myself, because doing that alone can seem like, taking on too much. It can seem really overwhelming and really scary. So I think really working with a shaman and working with a coach, and again, like I said, that strong support system, um, can help shed light on it. It almost helps you understand why it's happening, and it almost puts you at ease knowing that you are going to get through it. There's no way that you're not going to. It's just finding the strength within yourself to keep pushing. So I highly recommend that as well.
No, it's so true. I mean, I remember growing up, I didn't have coaches. I didn't have mentors really, or the mentors I thought were mentors weren't probably where I wanted to go in life. And there came a point in my life where I was just like, okay, I don't really have people who are outside the realm of where I want to go to. I know some people, but I don't have it. And then eventually I went and jumped on and said, okay, I'm hiring a coach. and they're going to help me. I'm going to learn their life. I'm going to learn how they do things. I'm going to learn their methods. And then, and I've had coaches ever since. And then I looked at energy healers and shamans like you have, and all these other things, because I knew that, well, I didn't have, people in my life who were like that. So I was like, you know what, I'll have to go find them myself. There's no excuse, right?
Absolutely.
And in the beginning, I used to look for books, and I would read people's books. And once I liked somebody's book, I would read all their books, see what they had, and I would study them. And it was one of those things that will, for the listeners, is why I'm sharing all this. It allows you to get that massive growth. And it's also doesn't allow you to have an excuse, especially in this day and age.
I agree. And I think one thing that helped me really push through, there's the book, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, which is like probably the best book ever, one of the best books ever really written. It's just incredible. And I remember as I was going through all this, I think I was going through my divorce at this time, and I, had a couple dollars, and I was going and sitting in Starbucks, and I was writing book reports on Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, and I was studying the content, and I was writing like my own version and own understanding of what he was saying. And because I did that, and I was dedicating that time and space to myself, and one thing I think you always say too, it doesn't matter the size of the step that you're taking every day. Like I used to think I had to create this huge leap every single day, and it's not. It's just one step each day consistently, you showing up for yourself every single day consistently, and really tapping in, over, you add in a month, 2 months, 2 years, 10 years, and you look at how far you've come. So, Eckhart Tolle in that book, and writing reports on it. So I was thinking of that last night. I'm like, that was like a huge part of my self-discovery. So again, just realizing where you're being pulled towards, it's spirit giving you what you need to keep going. You always have everything you need. You don't need to really look for it. It's always there.
It's one of the things where, like they say, if you're not looking, wherever you look, you're going to find. And if you really believe, like, well, the universe has my back, the universe is always going to support your spirit or so forth. Now, I got a quick question for you. When you say the word spirit, when you're trusting spirit, is it really trusting spirit, or is it really just trusting you, the soul essence of you, the non-duality aspect of you?
It's interesting. Again, of course, I had this conversation with Shaman Steve the other day, so makes sense this is coming up. What I am now realizing is it is trusting myself, because I am source. We are source. We are the same as spirit. We are unconditional love in its purest form. And throughout life, we just take on these different masks and this different energy that, like we said before, I think is really redirecting us back to what we are at our core, which is the unconditional love. And the more that I'm realizing, when I lean into myself and make decisions and ask myself what it is, that is actually also trusting spirit. So instead of me, leaning into my guides and saying, okay, guides, do I go right or left? Which one? Tell me which one, show me the pathway. That is giving power away to what does not need to be. It is like using energy in a way that doesn't need to be used. So a lot recently, I have been turning that back in towards myself and trusting that whatever choices that I'm making, as long as it's coming from a loving space within myself, that is what I will continue to bring into my life.
And I only ask that because, there's so many times I'll hear, and like you just said it, right? I'm going to trust XYZ, and I'm taking my palm or the archangel or ascended master. I got it caught into that. I was like, okay, I gotta work with ascended master cards, and I started doing those all the time. Then I would have a medium work with them, and so I could figure out what I needed. And then it just came to a point one day where I'm like, it's like, again, they like to mess with me, so it's kind of like a slap in the face, kind of waking me up and going, dude, you're God. Get over this. And I was like, God, whoa, that's a big word. If I say that to the public, man, am I going to get ridiculed? They're like, you don't understand. I go, it's just a term. Change. And then they gave me all the terms, like the many that are out there. And I was like, okay, I can see where you're going with this, but I need to meditate on this for a little bit. And as I took bite-sized pieces, right, like little steps at a time, over time, I remember one time I was working with a medium, and they were channeling a spirit, and I was asking questions about some stuff, and all of a sudden I was like, what's God? What is God really? And I just wanted to know from their side because they have a whole different perspective than us. And then all of a sudden I said, well, here's what I got. God is the bloodline for us just as much as we're the bloodline for God. And if we are not in an exist, we were created for a need, not a want. And I go, if we don't exist, then nothing exists, because it's all part of the tiny little fragments that all come together that create the whole picture, which is just an extension of God, source, energy, non-duality, conditional love, whatever the name we want to put on. And he was just like, because he was a he form in the time he's he in the earth form, human form. But he was like, dude, he's like, I never even thought of it. I'm like, get the heck out of here. Of course, my ego wants to jump in, but I'm like, after a while, I'm like, I was just tapping into my higher, but I don't even like saying higher part, because there is no higher part. It's just my true self. But I want to bring that up too, because I think sometimes, like with religions and so forth, when people like are saying, Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I need you. I think Jesus for me was, because I grew up Roman Catholic, is that it was a reflection of showing you who you really are. Just like Buddha was a reflection of showing who you really are. Just like Krishna was a reflection of showing who you really are. So I really believe that's kind of where it comes from, instead of extending out, because we've been trained to do that, which then, as you know, doesn't, diminishes our true potential, or returning or understanding our power.
Absolutely. I love that. And what's interesting too, then, if you bring it into more of the human side of it, is if you are God, and if you are a reflection of this, and you are literally the heartbeat, we all are, to really keep this going and to really understand everything about you, including your personality, including these dark spaces, including your successes and strengths and weaknesses, everything about you is a gift. So it's like, to not step into that, to not step into who you are and speak your truth and live authentically is just such a disservice to so many people, because you were created this way for a purpose. I always say this, but it's like putting a puzzle piece together. When you are putting a puzzle together and you're missing one piece, how, there's a space open, like we all fit together like a complete snug puzzle piece. And the more that we step into who we actually are and understand that even these dark parts and even these light parts of us are needed to create who we are, when you step into that, you understand, infinite source, you understand the life you can create for yourself. I just can't stress it enough to just be exactly who you are, because that is what the world needs. Otherwise you wouldn't be here.
So true. And it's all about like and good old Catholics, right? Free will, free will, free will. Which it does exist, but it's one of the things where, like you were bringing up, it's we choose those dark times. We chose everything before we came in. And so, like, for me, when I really trusted that and was like, okay, I chose this, I would be like, why is the reason? What's the reason behind it? I wanted to know. But then I was like, I'm not supposed to know. That's the whole journey. You separate from all knowing. Well, I would say all knowing, but you have access to get information. You do have a very wealth of knowledge, but it's one of the things where, again, like you said, pieces of the puzzle, right? Like my soul is just one piece. Your soul is just one piece. Right. They don't look the same. Right? Mm-hmm. There's a slight difference in variation to them. And that's what makes us unique. But then you add everyone else in, and that's what puts the whole totality of what we're talking about.
Yes. Love that.
Awesome. I love it. And so this was a wonderful conversation, by the way. How can people connect? How can people reach out, follow you, see what you're up to? You got your amazing book out there. How can they get all that?
Yes. So if you go to Instagram at Angelica Grace with the letter C at the end, so Angelica Grace C, you can click on my bio, the link in my bio, and within that you can find how to purchase my book, how to book readings with me, how to kind of catch up on the tarot. I do tarot card reads, weekly, monthly, that kind of help guide people, Reiki sessions, just everything that I'm sort of creating my life's purpose is all on there. So check me out on Instagram. You can find everything you need.
And then for your book, is it on Amazon? How can people get a hold of it, or website? Where's that at?
Yes. So you can search it on Amazon. It's called Graceful, A Soul's Journey. But also there is a link on Instagram in my bio that will direct you right to that as well. So both spaces are great.
Angelica, this was fun. I appreciate having you on, taking some time, sharing some space with us and sharing it with all the listeners. It was a lot of fun, a lot of wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Right back at you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I can't see, so just bear with me. I'm going to edit this out, obviously.